Hello, I am Mike Lawson, and today I want to talk about something fundamental to the strength and future of our nation: American families and the demographic trends that are reshaping our society. Until relatively recently, large families were the bedrock of American life. Thinking back to colonial America, survival was a daily struggle. High infant mortality rates, disease, and the demand of an agrarian lifestyle meant that large families weren't just common, they were essential. Children were, in a very real sense, vital assets, helping with farm work and ensuring the family's survival and continuation. Today, the dynamic has shifted drastically. Urbanization, economic shifts, and evolving societal priorities have drastically altered the landscape. The result of all this? U.S. birth rates have fallen well below replacement level, and this has far-reaching consequences. I personally argue that the U.S. must reform its tax code to meaningfully incentivize large families and reverse the ongoing demographic decline. At this point, I'd like to show you a chart illustrating the decline in the U.S. birth rate over the past few decades. This visual clearly demonstrates the trend we are discussing, with the current replacement birth rate in the U.S. being 1.6 children per woman, significantly below the 22.1 replacement rate needed to maintain the population. To understand the problem, let's look at where we are now. As the chart shows, the current replacement rate in the U.S. is 1.6 child per woman. This is not happening in a vacuum. Modern economic realities discourage large families due to the higher cost and changing societal priorities. We need to acknowledge the complexity here. It's not just about finances, but also how our society has evolved. Societies are always in flux, and we must adapt to ensure the continued vitality of our nation. The demographic shift affects many groups of stakeholders, and it is crucial to understand how. Let's explore these more in detail. Middle-income couples who are trying to build their families are especially affected by this. These couples face the most direct impact. The high cost of raising children, including housing, healthcare, and education, can be a significant deterrent to having a larger family. They may delay having children, have fewer children than they desire, or experience extreme financial strain trying to balance family and their careers. Social Security and Medicare beneficiaries are also heavily affected. These individuals rely on a steady influx of younger workers to fund their benefits. A declining birth rate means fewer workers contributing to these systems, which can lead to benefit cuts, increased taxes, or the system's overall insolvency. This threatens the financial security of current and future retirees. Employers as a whole also are affected. Businesses need a growing workforce to remain productive and expand. A shrinking labor pool can lead to labor shortages, increased labor costs, and slower economic growth. This can hinder innovation, reduce competitiveness, and ultimately harm the overall economy. Rural communities are also susceptible to this problem. These areas rely on families to support local businesses, schools, and community organizations. Declining birth rates can exacerbate population decline in rural areas, leading to school closures, business closures, and a loss of community vitality. This can create ghost towns, which are prevalent all across America. The U.S. government is also a major person that's affected by this problem. The government's ability to fund essential services, maintain a strong economy, and project its influence on a global stage depends on a healthy population. Declining birth rates can weaken the nation's tax base, increase the burden of social welfare programs, and diminish the overall power and influence of a country. These consequences of declining birth rates are significant. Our social safety nets like Social Security and Medicare are strained. We're facing a situation where a large number of workers are retiring and there aren't enough people to fill their roles or pay into these vital social welfare programs. As the Social Security Bulletin noted in 2007, this may lead to restructuring, possibly involving raising the retirement age or decreasing the benefits from retirees. Rural communities are also suffering. Since 1998, more than 6,000 public schools have closed in rural U.S. counties. As Sagman pointed out in 2022, these closures could trigger or reinforce population loss. What are some of the barriers to addressing this issue? Well, our current tax code, simply put, does not provide enough support for families, especially larger ones. With a population replacement of 2.1 children, many families will need to have more than 2 children. Yet there are virtually no tax incentives or benefits to have a larger family. As seen in this chart, there is largely little scalable difference in having 1 to 4 children, as the economic strain of 4 children has little to no benefits, although increasing size in family is crucial. The financial cost of raising a child is a huge factor. The chart seen below, displayed by Wells Fargo, showcases the cost of raising a child, the red line, against the national CPI, as well as household income. As one can see, child care costs have far outrisen household income and other normal living costs. Considering this, the U.S. News and World Report states that the cost of raising a child born in 2015 was $233,000, and adjusted for inflation, that number jumps to $312,000 as of March 2024. Child care is another major expense. A 2024 Pew Research study by Leppert notes that the median cost per child for paid care in 2018 was anywhere from 9 to 19% of the median household income. It is no surprise that 60% of U.S. adults say that the federal government providing free child care would be extremely or very effective in growing families. And political gridlock pose a significant barrier. Constant elections and political polarization make it increasingly difficult to enact major policy changes. It's important to recognize that the U.S. isn't alone in facing this challenge. Many nations in Europe are grappling with similar declining birth rates and similar problems. However, some of these countries have taken proactive steps in addressing the issue. France, for example, has been able to hold on to the highest birth rate in Europe as it offers months of maternity leave, weeks of paternity leave, birth grants, tax benefits, and state-funded child support. As a result, France's birth rates remain the highest due to these sweeping benefits. Hungary has taken an even more aggressive approach. They offer no income tax for life to families with more than 5 children and high mortgage support. To support families, homeownership, and the construction industry, the government is also extending to reduce 5% VAT rates on new residential property sales until the 31st of December 2026, according to the Hungarian Conservative. Hungary has seen increased fertility rates and family formation due to these policies. As well as, according to the BBC, Italy offers a €800 birth payment upon the birth of a new child. With these results have been moderate, these policies have shown some improvements in family planning among younger couples and higher birth rates. These European examples demonstrate that policy innovation can make a difference. These countries have shown that these immense problems have a solution. So who can solve this issue? Here in the U.S., the answer is our elected officials. The U.S. Congress, our executive branch, and the IRS all have the authority and the tools to implement tax reform that prioritizes family formation. We're even seeing more movement on this front. According to the Wall Street Journal, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance began to push pro-natal policies such as tax reductions and IVF federal funding in order to promote family growth in the United States, according to the Wall Street Journal. But, and this is crucial, change won't occur without public pressure. That's where you, the audience, come in. Here's how you can advocate for change. Advocate for federal legislation that increases the child tax credit and introduces those scalable deductions based on the number of children you have. Contact your local representatives to support pro-natalist tax policies. Vote in people running for office who prioritize demographic change. Your voice matters, and your action can make a whole lot of difference with this topic. Now, let's talk about more specific solutions. In my opinion, I propose a two-pronged approach of mandates and funding. Mandates should include increasing the U.S. tax credit and make larger tax deductions for schooling and childcare with each additional child to a family. To address the financial side of this proposal, let's consider a significant increase in the child tax credit. For instance, we could raise it up to $10,000 per family, with additional tiers for larger families. $12,000 for families with 3 children, to $15,000 for families with 4 children or more. This should provide substantial financial relief and directly incentivize family growth. The overall cost to this U.S. federal government would depend on the number of eligible families, but we can estimate it. Currently, the child tax credit is around $2,000 per child. If we assume 40 million children are eligible, the current cost is $80 billion. Increasing that credit to an average of $12,000 per family would raise that cost to $480 billion annually. This represents a substantial increase, but it's an investment in our future, and it's an important one. The long-term benefits of a stable and growing population include a stronger economy, a more robust social net, and would far outweigh the short-term cost. Funding for the initiatives would come from U.S. budget reallocations. Assuming a swift passage through Congress, these changes could be implemented in the following fiscal year, with IRS enforcement on tax changes and verifying families' number of dependents. It is important to emphasize that these policies are not just theoretical. European nations have proved the success of these policies. It has proven that the cost of maintaining a family is a major reason for the decrease in family size, and a significant incentive from taxes will help. In conclusion, whether it's the U.S. tax code or the insane cost of raising children, the problems associated with declining birth rates affect all Americans. The American people need to advocate for themselves to make the major changes needed to curtail this major issue in the future. In this case, what we can do for our country is advocate for policies that support families and ensure a vibrant future for generations to come. Thank you.